Good morning, traders. This is my morning brief. I have been running these at 8:45 in the morning, but I decided I'm going to start recording these and just post them so people can watch them whenever they feel like. So basically, here we go. Start the day off here. It's about bonds today. We have the 10-year auction, which the ZNs represent. Whoops, I don't have that on the chart. I'm sorry. Let me get my ZNs up here. ZNs, they represent my 10-year. Okay. And so basically, here's we are on our 10-year versus our 30-year bonds. And we have an auction today. And basically, we've been under quite a bit of selling pressure here on the bonds since our. Let's go over here to my other chart here. These are our ZNs here on the daily time frame here. So basically, since the 25th of February, and as you can see right here marked our February 25th, right here on the ZNs here. Right here was our 7-year auction, and as you can see, we had some major downside selling forces. So basically, we had a very bad auction on the 25th of February, and at that point in time, we had a major sell down in our bonds. But keep in mind, typically our 7-year is not in much demand. You typically have a low turnout for those contracts anyway, and so this big sell down is just low liquidity. Just very little interest into that situation. And since that point in time, we have not come back and recovered. And we're coming into the 10-year today, and it's a different beast. This is one of the most desired treasury instruments, and so I am thinking we are going to have a good auction today in our treasury bonds. And so some things I do want takeaways I do want to talk about this morning. We had this big sell down on the 7-year, which was a fairly illiquid product, and it was a $62 billion auction on this day. Okay, and unless I'm wrong with the information I looked up here a few minutes ago, today's auction is only 38 billion on the 10-year. So you're relatively half the auction size on a extremely desired product from global equities. Okay, and 38 billion. Hell, that is really nothing. One central bank can buy up 38 billion, and we have global banks around the world buying these treasuries. So I do want to point that out. There's plenty of cash out there in the system, so I am expecting a very positive 10-year auction this afternoon. I think it's 1 o'clock based on my calendars. Some guys said 11 o'clock yesterday, but I think it's 1 o'clock today is the 10-year auction that's happening. And then tomorrow we have another auction, and it's the 30-year auction at 1 o'clock as well. And it's even smaller. It's only 24 billion. So I think by the sizing of the auctions they've got this week, that the Federal Reserve is literally trying to drive down yields, trying to prove that there is plenty of demand for the U.S. debt, and by keeping the size of the auction small, they can keep the demand much higher, and that is the thesis I'm going into today. And I do think there's a very good chance we are going to see Treasury yields coming in today. So I do want to point that out going into today's session. So as you can see, we're coming into some resistance areas. So if Treasury yields do manage to come in here, we're probably going to be breaking higher here on these ZNs and ZBs. So I do want to point that out going into today's auction. I think we are going to catch a bid in actual bonds. And I also want to point out one of the main reasons that we've had this issue since the 7-year. We've had a liquidity issue in the repo market. And the repo market is the overnight lending between banks for government treasuries and government securities. And so there has been a lack of participation in this market here recently, and largely driven by a very high short float in our TLT. Well, not TLT, but government securities in general. I'll just use TLT as a benchmark here to show you what I'm looking at here. So basically, look how TLT has just gotten destroyed here. There is a major short interest happening here in TLT coming into today's auction. And this is similar to what's been going on in GameStop. So I do want to point this out. If I'm correct, and the shorts get run over in TLT, we could actually see a massive rally here, possibly by the end of the day, 143.11 here on the TLT by day's end, possibly here. Could quite possibly see a very nice pop here in the well, that might be a little too far, but my point is we could actually see a major bid in our bond markets today. So I do want to point that out as a risk going forward here. One of my favorite trades, just knowing all the information I've given you, short IWM and long Qs, the technology space. Okay, and a delta neutral trade. And I think that is the risk reward is there if I'm right, and what I'm seeing in the markets is developing. That would be a scenario you might want to think about going into today's session. Like I said, short Russell and long technology, delta neutral trade for today's session. So just that's a trade idea that I'm putting out there here real early this morning. Other things happening this morning: CPI, Consumer Price Index. It hits at 8:30 this morning, so this thing's coming out. I am expecting a bid, quite possibly a substantial uptick in CPI, Consumer Price Index, largely driven by the higher prices in commodities. So I do want to keep that one on watch going into today's session. This is going to signify inflation in the U.S. economy. We've already overnight had some major inflation numbers coming out of China. So I do want to point that out. What's happening in crude is having a major change of tone in the global equity markets. So just keep that in mind, because the energy space has really impacted inflationary expectations. The core inflation, basically because the unemployment is so high, is expected to be flat, and I'm in the same camp on that. I don't expect that, but so just keep that in mind. So basically, they're expecting 1.7 on the CPI, and versus the 1.4 from last time, and then they're expecting a 1.4% unchanged from last time as well. This is from February's data, okay? And so from January to February, and we know how much crude has just skyrocketed since then. And another thing I do want to point out here is your IYT, and this is happening right now. It's not really a news-driven event. I want to point this out on your transports here. Basically, we've had this massive run-up in our transports, and they kind of look like they're breaking out. I do want to point out that we're right in the heart of shipper renegotiations for the shipping industry. International shippers, like the big ships coming across and air freight, all of those are in major negotiations right now, and they lock in prices for the rest of the year. And a lot of times, many times, see, this is March. You go into March and you see a similar situation. They run up commodity prices into that, so the shippers can lock in the highest rates they possibly can into high commodity prices, and then we tend to get a sell-off afterwards. So I do want to point out what's going on with our transports, understanding why price action is doing as it is. If I'm correct, we are probably in the next week, couple of weeks, going to start seeing a reprieve to the downside and possibly breaking trend on our transports. So I do want to point that out going forward here. Okay, as far as this morning volume going on here, we are at 5:30 in the morning, and basically $70,000 on SPY, or 70,000 contracts. So we have extremely light volume here at 5:30 in the morning already on our markets. I do think we're going to have a lightened early session until we finally get the raw data out. Like I said, it's 1 o'clock today before we start getting um, what's going on with the 10-year auction. And like I said, I think it's going to be a very good auction, in my opinion, today. So, like I said, that's why I really think the Fed and Yellen and all them, they're not too concerned with how interest rates are going because, like they said, they have a lot of tools. I think one of the major tools right now, before the stimulus is being launched, is that they can they can still put in smaller auctions, and there's plenty of cash out there to absorb those smaller auctions and drive yields back down. So that is a primary thesis that I think is going to play out here in the next few weeks. So just keep that in mind going forward here. And like I said, I'm really concerned that there's such a huge short float in TLT that we are looking at a major squeeze potential. Similar, yeah, not exactly, but similar to what's happening in GameStop. So I do want to point that out. Okay, some of the top volume this morning. AMC Entertainment got a nice little bid here in our AMC. Remember, we do have stimulus that's likely to be signed by the House, passed today in the House. So that is also another catalyst going forward in today's session. So the most over destroyed areas in the markets, like your airlines, like your leisure, your gaming stocks, casinos, your Boeing. Boeing, actually, I think by early summer you're going to see $300 a share on Boeing. So I'm sticking to that analysis. I do think Boeing is one of the best Dow components to be owning into summer. So I'm going to stick with that thesis until proven otherwise. I know some guys in the room, they were trying to play Apple and stuff for the overnight. I'm still not a big believer in, you know, but they can have a major short squeeze here in technology today, especially if the auction goes as I'm expecting. So I do want to keep that out there just in case. Right now, you can buy Apple even cheaper than yesterday's close. So I do want to point that out if my thesis is playing out here. Boeing's already got a bid over 133. Once it gets above one up in this zone right here, very easily pop right to 240 today on Boeing. Very easy mover to the upside to 240, given where it's at. And we do have coming up. We do have Friday. China, their February retail sales are coming out, and they've already come out with consumer debt was extremely strong for February, as people were off for basically a week for their holiday, their New Year's holiday, and so like stocks like Alibaba and JD are likely to catch a bid into Friday's core retail numbers, given the data that came out this morning on their stuff. So I was talking about that in the room yesterday on the close. So I really like Baba. I like JD going forward into the end of the week, assuming the markets hold up. Okay, and then tomorrow we also have jobs claims, which are likely to be a lot lower than expected, largely because California's got 40% or better of the unemployment, and they're opening up. I mean, the power of one state to completely flip the jobless claims is unreal, and that's exactly what's happening here. And then Texas is number two, and then. And then at 10 o'clock, we have new job openings. That's really important also to see how many employers are out there looking for people. So that's 10 o'clock today or tomorrow. And then, like I said, the 30-year tomorrow too. So just keep that in mind going forward here. And then Friday, we also has PPI. That's a purchasing prices for manufacturing. And that is another one. If it's any clue like what we're seeing with China, we're probably going to see some major inflationary data. So over the next couple days, I mean, I think it's still a very good trade if you're interested in gold, possibly gold to the long side. So in that tone, you got your gold futures right here. I think there's a very good chance we're going to be coming right back up here in this area on our gold over the next few days here. We are Just something to think about here going forward. We do have to clear 1765, but this is another one that's probably going to maintain a bid with all the inflationary numbers because of crude. So just keep that in mind also going forward here. And then CL, I did mention to everybody I thought crude had possibly topped out here, um, but so we major resistance here on crude. I had used my market webs on the yearly basis. That is a major resistance line. Got rejected hard so far, and we were above trend. So basically, we haven't even tagged a midline yet. So I'm looking for crude to come back into this area for possibly a bull flag continuation. So just keep that in mind going forward here. And one other theme that I was thinking about here, the dollar looks like it is has bottomed here. As you can see, this has been an accumulation zone for the dollar in the past. It looks like we have proven another accumulation zone. So I'm looking back up here for a 200-day, the purple one here. That is a 200-day retest. So that's what I'm looking for. That's another dragging force on crude oil if that were the case. So I do want to point that out going forward here. We had this major stimulus hitting the U.S. economy. And if people want to be in U.S. equities, they have to buy into dollars. Okay, so if you have global investors, Australia, Europe, in Africa, any of them want to get into U.S. equities, they do have to buy into the dollar. And dollar on a relative basis to the euro is cheap. So at least with the stimulus hitting right here, I think it's a good time for Europeans to be buying into the dollar for the possibility of a rally in U.S. equities, along with dollar appreciation in the same breath. Okay, so that is a scenario that I'm putting out here going forward. So, guys, that's just a quick rundown of what I'm seeing this morning as far as headlines and stuff like that. Um, there was a big hacking scandal. I think it's going to be a non-event. I did call out yesterday a major move in Tesla, breakout move. It actually went a heck of a lot higher than I thought. I did post those 720 calls went from, at the time I called it, around 350 a contract. They topped out $11 a contract yesterday for this week. So that was a major move in Tesla already. So just keep that one in mind. So we'll see what happens today. As I said before, we're still getting relative weakness in Nasdaq so far this morning. We're going to have to see an actual strong 10-year option, and I think that's whenever they're going to unleash the Kraken on technology. So this afternoon, let's look for technology to be the outperformer going into late afternoon today. Thanks a lot. Like the video if you like it. Please retweet it on Twitter. I do have a Twitter feed, Gumby9662C. And please, like I said, follow me on YouTube. And leave comments below. If you disagree with anything I said, or if I have something in error, be sure and correct me in there, because I have other people that rely on my information, and I do want to make sure everything's accurate as best as possible. Okay? Thanks a lot, and I will see you probably tomorrow morning.